A mistake, she always stood behind us. She'd never put us down in front of anyone else. But then later, she would take us aside and say, you know, that was wrong.
During her tenure, the Indiana Hospital nursing students became affiliated with Indiana University of Pennsylvania.
Here at IUP, we had the regular professors. We had anatomy and physiology, sociology, psychology, nutrition. Those are the ones that come to mind right now. And they were very tough classes.
Another important woman was Ruby Dobson. In 1965, when she became director, the entire curriculum was revised. Under her tenure, two important things happened. The program received their first accreditation from the Board of Diploma Programs of the National League for Nursing. And in 1966, the first married woman and the first male student were admitted to the school. As the 1970s began, the long-awaited Visiting Nurses Association of Indiana County was organized. This gave the elderly and chronically ill a much-needed alternative to being hospitalized. In September 1976, Indiana University of Pennsylvania Department of Nursing began an affiliation with Indiana Hospital for student nurses to complete clinical training there. Soon after, on November 26, a fire broke out in the nurses' residence building.
It was Thanksgiving weekend. The good news was most of the students were not there because they had gone home for the holiday.
That was devastating to all of us who had attended the school.
While no one was injured, the school was destroyed, and a decision was made to close the school for good after the graduation of the current freshman class.
It was devastating that the school that had existed from 1918 was no longer going to be there.
On the 23rd of March, 1979, the 61st and final class of 19 members graduated. As nursing progressed, changes have come to the profession. The institution of nursing has become more gender neutral, and the uniforms have changed to address this. The starched white dresses have been replaced by the colorful, more comfortable scrubs of today. Throughout the years, it has become common for nurses to have bachelor and master's degrees. Today, approximately 73% of the patient care staff at IRMC are registered nurses. Nurses have also been given a voice in areas beyond patient care. They are now involved in establishing hospital policies, procedures, and practices. The nurses at IRMC today are more knowledgeable than ever, and the commitment to quality patient care has remained the top priority. Creating and sustaining a community hospital for 100 years requires the commitment and dedication of many. In this segment, we look at some of the memorable contributors to the mission and legacy of IRMC. At the same time, we acknowledge and thank all of the members of the Indiana Regional Medical Center and the Indiana community who have contributed to this success. Community support has been the foundation of IRMC. In the early 1900s, the New Century Club, formed to plan the county's centennial celebration, would launch the initiative for a community hospital. Mrs. Susan Williard would play a leading role, and with the financial support of Adrian Island Jr., the dream would become a reality in 1914. Another key contributor is the Hospital Auxiliary. Formed in 1916, it has provided volunteer services and fundraising efforts such as rummage sales, benefit dances, and the annual charity ball which is in its 77th year. Its service work continues today with the hospital pantry, information desk, patient support, and comfort services. In the 1930s, the hospital would undergo a major round of expansion as the community grew. John S. Mack, local businessman and co-owner of G.C. Murphy Company, would be a key component in the expansion. Mack contributed his time and resources to expanding the hospital to meet state certification standards and better serve the growing community. Completed in 1939, the Mack Wing increased the number of beds to 200 and added a maternity ward. Mack also donated 1,500 shares of stock to create a memorial fund honoring his parents John M. and Sarah E. Mack. The Mack Fund provides for hospitalization, medication, and nursing for less fortunate patients. Throughout its growth and expansion, S&T Bank and First Commonwealth have provided financial support and officers for the hospital board.
The relationship with S&T and the hospital has been a very close one for many, many years. There have been some physicians in town who were directors of the bank, and I can remember 2 or 3 or 4 of my fellow colleagues over the years who were trustees on the board of directors, and I guess that's just part of being some of the more prominent businesses in the community.
Other major supporters include the Bear family, owners of the Northern Cambria Fuel Company, and the Chestnut Ridge Golf Resort, which is named in their honor. The Bork Emergency Department reflects the generous contributions provided by the Bork Family Foundation. They also started Birdie's Closet for support to women cancer patients. Throughout its existence, IRMC has been blessed with dedicated, committed leaders and staff. Under the direction of Mrs. Sarah M. Morgert, the first superintendent, Indiana Hospital began operations. Mrs. Morgert would also be one of the first teachers of the nursing school, and along with several other Indiana nurses, would serve in World War I with the American Red Cross and the U.S. Army. Adeline Hawkshurst began her career in Indiana Hospital in 1915 as a bookkeeper and served as assistant administrator from 1939 to 1944. In March of 1944, she became head administrator and would serve in this capacity until her retirement in 1965 after 50 years of dedicated service.
Well, she's a legend. Yes, she is a legend. She was the administrator of the hospital for 50 years. And when she retired, and I don't remember anymore how long it was, but they brought her back because they just couldn't find anyone to replace her. Imagine that, because no one's irreplaceable. But she was also a very strict, imposing figure.
Another key figure is Nettie Beeler. She played a prominent role in the nursing program, serving as its director from 1948 until she retired in 1965.
She interviewed me before I came into nursing school, and basically I was scared to death. She intimidated me, she did, but she was very caring and very dedicated to nursing education, that when you graduated you knew how to be a nurse. And basically we were her children, and she really cared about us. And in addition to making us nurses, she made us ladies.
Mrs. Beeler established the affiliation between the Indiana Hospital School of Nursing and the nursing department at Indiana University of Pennsylvania. Mrs. Beeler was known for being an outstanding mentor for her nurses and running a tight ship. During her time as nursing director, her students began memberships within local district and national student nurses associations. Martha Coppelli worked at Indiana Hospital from 1949 to 1996 and devoted a great deal of her time serving as an assistant to many of the hospital's CEOs. Larry Marshall was added to the hospital staff as Senior Vice President of Finance in June of 1978. He retired from the position in September of 2008. While Senior Vice President, he provided financial coordination, supporting a major expansion in outreach. In February of 1999, Stephen A. Wolf took over as CEO of Indiana Hospital and remains in the position today.
Well, when I came down, I just saw an organization that had so much potential and great people and a great market to be in, and the proximity to Pittsburgh, the opportunity for demographic growth, and certainly the university and seeing some banks headquartered here all really spoke to the opportunity. And so we came down and interviewed, and they were fortunate enough to ask me to come, and so that was in February of 1999. And like I said, it's been an honor to serve, and we have 5 children. It's been a wonderful place to have a family. It really is a wonderful place at Indiana, and we think the hospital has come a long way. We're real proud of the hospital and believe that we're going to continue to be even better.
In his time with the hospital, he views his greatest accomplishment to be the family-like environment that has developed among the staff and patients. In addition to strong community support and dedicated leadership, IRMC has been blessed with outstanding physicians who have developed the capabilities of the hospital and expand the scope of patient care. Thanks to Adrian Island Jr.'s affiliation with the Rochester and Pittsburgh Coal Company, the Indiana Hospital provided medical care for miners and their families. Dr. Ralph Brown, who was self-employed in Homer City at the time, was asked to become a coal company physician and decided to take the job. He saw the job as a good way to get started, but often found it draining and extremely time-consuming. Dr. Ralph Waldo was hired by Adeline Hawkshurst in 1949 to run the emergency room and to care for the patients receiving financial assistance. He was called to active duty in 1952, and after serving as a Navy flight surgeon, returned to Indiana in 1956. He opened a private practice and served on the IRMC medical staff until 1999. His fantastic nature earned him a valued name within the history of Indiana Hospital. Mr. Henry Hild was elected to the Indiana Hospital Board of Directors in October of 1963. He became board president on October 21st of 1965, where he served many dedicated years until 1983. Mr. Hild sadly passed away on April 6, 2008. He was 97. In 1967, Dr. Melvin Williams joined Indiana Hospital as the first board-certified internal medicine physician. During his time with Indiana Hospital, Dr. Williams developed the hospital's first intensive care unit. Later in his career, Dr. Williams organized the Department of Nuclear Medicine to expand the range of care provided to patients. Dr. James Garretson was a colleague of Dr. Williams when they were residents just after medical school. In 1972, he joined Dr. Williams at Indiana Hospital as the second board-certified physician in internal medicine. Dr. John Mills was hired in 1977 and specialized in obstetrics and gynecology. He was interested in all aspects of medicine and worked hard for his patients and the medical staff. He was also extremely active in the PA Medical Society. In 1982, Dr. Henry Mitchell's main focus was his pediatric practice. While maintaining his practice, he was named Indiana Hospital's first medical director. His duty was to provide medical input pertaining to problems that arose either in patient care or among hospital staff. All in all, Dr. Mitchell could be called the hospital's medical spokesperson, as he was in charge of speaking on behalf of all Indiana hospital physicians. Dr. Mark Boyque began his career at Indiana Hospital in 1982. He served as medical staff president and the chair of the Department of Surgery. One of his greatest accomplishments was helping to bring laparoscopic gallbladder surgery to the hospital in 1991. In 2012, he became the 7th doctor in the history of IRMC to be granted the Physician Excellence Award. Dr. Herbert Hanna, who worked as a physician at Indiana Hospital, established the Blairsville branch and is largely responsible for the entire southern tier growth of Indiana Hospital. During its first 100 years, IRMC was blessed with strong community support. With this foundation, dedicated and visionary physicians, nurses, and leadership built the IRMC we know today and lay the groundwork for the next century of care. Over the past 100 years, the Indiana County community has helped build IRMC brick by brick. As we look to our second century of service, it is appropriate to reflect on how our modern facilities were developed. As 1914 was drawing to a close, Indiana Hospital was opening. Built on the site of the George C. Dickey Farm, the original building was funded primarily by Adrian Island Jr. of the Rochester and Pittsburgh Coal and Iron Company. Constructed by the Hyde Murphy Company, the 3-story brick building was completely fireproof and housed 40 beds. With the Spanish influenza of 1918, the porches of the original hospital were enclosed, expanding patient capacity. A second stage of expansion began in 1929, with a new 3-story wing opening in May 1931. The expansion increased capacity to 154 beds, and an elevator was installed thanks to a donation from John G. McCrory. Even with this expansion, Indiana Hospital was not large enough to meet state standards to accept interns and provide nursing certifications. John S. Mack, local businessman, accepted this challenge and led the effort for the next round of expansion. In May 1937, the Mack Wing was opened, expanding capacity to 200 beds and creating a separate power facility serving the hospital. The hospital now had 5 times the capacity of the original facility. The next major step for the hospital was the opening of a new facility for the nursing school in October of 1947. Funded by a community capital campaign, it included dormitories, classrooms, kitchens, and an auditorium. Over the next 30 years, the facility would serve as the home for the nursing program. Unfortunately, it was destroyed in a tragic fire on Thanksgiving Eve in 1976, and the school would soon be closed after 60 years of operation.
The fire was in the lounge area, which was on the 2nd level. Apparently there was a short in the TV that started the fire. And because there was no one there, basically, it kind of got a good start before it was noticed.
In the 1950s, the next major step of development occurred. The community, auxiliary, and hospital funds supported a $1.3 million addition to the complex. Finished in 1958, the new facility enabled the hospital to perform many testing procedures usually done only in large city hospitals. The expansion included a kitchen and cafeteria. It also includes radiological and fluoroscopic services, along with diagnostic and treatment rooms. It also contains surgical facilities and recoveries along with a new laboratory. Despite its continual growth, Indiana still lacked an intensive care unit. The ICU was made possible by the auxiliary after Dr. Melvin Williams made it a condition of his hire. Built in the sun porch area of the Mac Wing, the ICU opened in 1968 with 5 beds, 3 electric monitoring devices, and the hospital's first crash cart. The most prominent addition to the hospital would occur in 1979 with the dedication of the tower.